I don't blame you.
We stayed home. We were in bed by 10:30.
It's not like you could this year. You
couldn't
really
go. I don't want to just get drunk at my house. No, I will say that I did do that. I did attempt to drink for the first time since going into the hospital.
Okay, and
it was bad. Like I poured 2 shots of Crown Black with a little bit of Coke. It was delicious. I took like 3 or 4 sips and was like moderately buzzed, and I was just like, I'm a little scared. I'm gonna not finish this drink, and that was all I had. I had like maybe a half a shot, and I was like, my eyes were buzzing. You know, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do here. You know, yeah, it was like scary.
Yeah,
like it was like you have 4 shots on blackout, and so we were in bed by 10:30. And then just laid there and like was on Twitter and TikTok and watched a couple YouTube videos. Oh, it's midnight. We kissed and then turned off the lamp and then went to sleep.
Nice. That's a great way to just call it a year. Yep. So that's kind of how I think a lot of people's was kind of the same. If you had crazy stories, be sure to share them with us. But I'm sure it will be more crazy this year when it finally turns again. We get to 2022 because then we can. Hopefully by then it's like normal and everybody's like, we're going to go back to what we used to do in terms of celebration. So at least that's what I'm expecting. I'll tell you that. Okay.
You guys do anything like normally?
Not this year.
Non-pandemic. What do you guys do?
Nothing normally. So, during non-pandemic, I feel like it changes every year because there's been a lot of years where I've recently been in different locations. Right. So it's actually not one of those things I'm always necessarily back home or anything like that. So it's just kind of a spur of the moment thing. Hey, let's do this, whatever. I feel like everybody has their own type of New Year's, celebration. And there's people that I think are kind of probably like you and me too, that are like, especially now, it's like, another day, right?
Yeah. For us, it's like, well, it's a reason to get together and you can celebrate and you can drink. And I'm like, yeah, but I can do that on a Tuesday. Like, I don't need a calendar change to do it.
Next year, though. I mean, this upcoming.
Those are the kind of people that have the on this day, like the daily holiday type things.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? We're going out and we're celebrating Sandwich Day. We're going to get plastered.
Sandwich Day, yeah. This upcoming December 31st, I think will be a fun one.
I agree.
So you challenged me before the show started to start off with this. Well, we have plenty to get to in the NFL, but I'll start off with this because while there was a lot of storylines coming out of Week 17, who made the playoffs, who didn't, playoffs are set, times and TV, all that is good to go, looks good. There's going to be, by the way, you get 3 games on Saturday and Sunday. That's going to be a lot of fun. And they're all spread out, noon, 3, 7 o'clock.
Like 3 games on each day?
Yeah, 3 games on each day.
Okay, I was like...
They added the extra wild card this year.
I thought you were saying like 3 games on Saturday and Sunday, and I'm like, that's a game and a half a day.
No,
that's
3
boring.
games in each day, so it's loaded up. So make your, address your calendars, get them ready to go. But... one of the biggest stories that comes out of yesterday, maybe not as much as obviously the Eagles deal, which we'll get to, but the Vikings and Lions game, because it's 2 teams that are like, who really cares? But it was cool. Justin Jefferson just continues. I mean, he's a beast. He is going to be really fun to watch at LSU. Goes over, what was he, like over 1,300 yards now for a rookie? That's just insane. Yeah. That's just insane. But the biggest thing comes out of that, and you told me this before the show, you're like, you got to talk about it. I was like, I agree, was one of the hits that was put on Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins comes out of the snap right near the goal line, I think it was.
Yeah, they were like on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, gets sacked.
4th and 9, or 4th and, I don't know what it was, like 4th and short.
Yeah, 4th and short or whatever it was. And guy comes free, brings him down to the ground, form tackle, okay? I mean, that's a solid, you'd have to go look it up specifically, but that's a solid hit on a quarterback, and you drive him into the ground. And it was called roughing the passer. It gave him a new set of downs, right up at the goal line, score. That is the play that I told you is what all the people who say, like Tom, the NFL's soft. The NFL's soft. They'll look back at that play and circle that play.
That was horrible.
Because that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen in any level of football. Yeah. I told you it actually angered me. Like, I was actually really mad that happened because it does. It puts a stain on the league. And it was funny because I think it was Troy Aikman, maybe. I have to remember right. But I think it was Troy Aikman in the Dallas game. There was a hit on a quarterback. And he said yesterday on the broadcast, there's a bunch of things that no one would have blinked an eye at in years past. Hits on quarterbacks. Now you get too close, and we know it's a 15-yarder. And that was exactly one of those plays. So it made me think, and I saw it with this year a couple times with Oklahoma State, you can go back every single year and circle certain incidents for defenders, and you say, feel really bad for defenders sometimes. Not only is their job super tough, first of all, but it's gotten so much worse because you can hardly tackle like you've been taught without getting a flag. And I completely agree. There are times like that where it happens, and I hated it. But that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. And we've seen before that referees have been, they get graded after every single performance. That right there has to deserve a big fat F. It just has to. It was terrible. It was one of the big takeaways yesterday in the NFL. That has to change. If you make a really good hit on a quarterback, and think about it too, Week 17, I don't know how close that guy might have been to an incentive for how many sacks you get in a year. Take that away. I mean, it's just ridiculous. There's so many things attached to it. I'm like, get back to football, man. That's not football. That's ruining the game. So, and I give referees credit because they have an extremely hard job. And I understand they've been told, hey, protect the quarterback at all costs. But that right there, ruins.
I agree protecting the quarterback, right? I think that I like football. I enjoy the physicality of the game. I'm not one of those old school purists that think that like anything should go, and this and that. But I think there are some hits on a quarterback. Like, I don't think you should be hitting up high on a quarterback. I think maybe that with anybody. Don't hit them up super high.
Well, even the penalty where if a hand hits the quarterback's helmet, that's an automatic 15.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Insane.
I think there are some hits across the board. I think there are some hits where it's like, okay, maybe that was a little bit too. Maybe you shouldn't, literally decleat somebody to where they can't get up off the turf.
Yeah,
like those old YouTube videos are fun to watch.
Oh, there was
scary stuff.
There was a vintage hit yesterday in the Chiefs game.
Yeah,
running back Austin Eckler for the Chargers knocked out cold. They showed the replay. And you can see his head flip around, and his eyes are shut, and he just went to sleep.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, it was scary.
Well, it's like that hit. I can't remember was it the Baltimore game last year? Baltimore Steelers when Mason Rudolph got hit he got hit up top, out cold before he hit the
that's
ground.
Right. He did.
Yeah,
I
those
remember
are
that.
Scary hits.
Yeah, they really are. So those are things you want to eliminate in the open
but
field.
But not form tackling.
Yeah, but form tackling,
My God.
The guy even tried to avoid because he knew as soon as he was coming down, if I land on him this way, it's going to be a penalty.
It wasn't even like a thought.
No.
It wasn't like, should I throw the flag? And then you see a late flag coming. It was like as soon as that guy was up off the ground, you saw that flag coming in slow motion.
Kirk Cousins hit the floor. It's crazy because what it is
Meaning that flag was already on its way before he hit the ground.
The NFL is and I get it why they do it, because you're not just protecting quarterbacks, you're protecting franchises.
Sure.
We've seen, especially this year, what happens when your franchise QB goes down. It's not good. And franchise QBs bring in money, right? They bring in viewers. So they've been told, you got to protect our interest here. But it's gotten to a level at some point where I agree with the Toms of the world where, hey, we gotta stop that.
Agree.
More NFL coming up. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech over the weekend was a huge win for Oklahoma State. Now, remind Texas Tech was, I think, ranked 13, right, at the time?
Yes.
And I'll have to double check because I know the rankings came out today already for the top 25 and see where they moved. So if you want to, I'm gonna make you.
I know the net came out. I know that. I haven't seen the updated.
But I'm gonna make you a play intern producer here while I give my spiel.
If it'll load.
Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. The first thing that came out of this game was Bryce Williams showing up big time. He showed up big time. That was awesome. He couldn't miss in the first half, particularly from three. Hit 3 big 3-pointers. And it was just good to see him actually get a chance to go out there and show what he brings to the table, because he can drive, he can defend, and man, he shot the lights out of the ball.
So they are 18 now.
Yeah,
They fell 18. They fell 5 spots to 18. And Oklahoma State is 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th team receiving votes with 68.
Yeah, that
in
helps.
Top 25. So if OSU now West Virginia fell. Yeah. They were 9. They fell 5 spots to 14. But if OSU, and this is a whole like cart before the horse, counting the eggs thing. But if OSU can figure out a way to get past West Virginia tonight, there's a really good chance that they squeak their way into that top 25.
Yeah, those are two. Those would be 2 back-to-back huge wins.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
West Virginia takes a loss to Oklahoma, which didn't look good. I watched the tail end of that game. I was like, man, Oklahoma, they took care of business, man. I give them credit. They really did. And West Virginia did not. So they're coming in off that loss, which definitely helps out Oklahoma.
Not only that, but they've lost Oscar Shibwe. He's opted out. He's left the team for personal reasons.
Yeah.
if it were me, I wouldn't want to be yelled at by Bob Huggins.
Thanks.
And then they lost Isaiah Cottrell. Now, Cottrell's a freshman who I think he was averaging less than 2 points. But Cottrell was a really talented prospect coming in. Tore his Achilles. That's 2 centers gone.
Yeah.
And Sheboy, that news came out either Friday or Saturday. So, I mean, that was big news going into that OU game.
And he made a much bigger impact last year than he was so far this year.
His stats weren't that far
No, they
off.
weren't, but he was just... And I think they were West Virginia fans. If you were to ask them, were like, it might be dipping a little bit, but it's still a significant loss for that team.
Absolutely.
And we'll get to them in just a minute. But Texas Tech, Bryce Williams is a story.
Yeah.
I know that, but there's a lot of other things you can take away from this game in terms of player performances. But when Bryce steps up like that, what it does, again, is it's not surprising to you or I, and it shouldn't be to anyone that's listened to our show we previewed to before the season, that there just continues to be an endless amount of options on the floor that Mike Boynton can get production out of.
Well, and he had mentioned it going, I can't remember if it was just before the official start of practice or if it was just thereafter, but someone had asked about that, the depth and if, about Cade and who this is, and they was like, Cade is probably our best athlete, our best basketball player, but Bryce is our best shooter. And you look at what he did. He started 3 for 3 from 3-point range, which is just wild. So he didn't put up a ton of points after that, but he put up points when it mattered.
Yeah, big time.
2 huge steals, 1 big assist that led to a foul, a 3-point play.
Hey, and speaking of, he got himself back also on the dunk highlight list.
And that actually set a career high for him, 15 points. 5 of 9 shooting, that's ridiculous.
That dunk was sick.
Yeah.
There are times, there's been like 5 or 6 times this season where personally, I've seen Oklahoma State throw a player throw a dunk down.
The windmill by Cade Cunningham earlier in the year.
I think it was Keelan earlier in the year that's done it more than once.
Literally killed that guy.
Yeah, Keelan did, yeah. Bryce, on Saturday, I'm just like, it makes you get you fired up. You're like, whoa, let's go.
Now, just imagine what this would look like. Now, we have not seen Montreal Pena.
Yeah.
The way it's going, I think it's safe to say we're probably not going to see Montreal Pena this season. But just watching those preseason practices, he was the most athletic guy out there. Mm-hmm. It was insane what he could do. You take him out of the equation and you look at what this team has done athletically. There is just an endless supply of it.
Yeah,
and
big time.
It's so much fun to watch, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do once they get back into their gym.
Well, and we knew that when you put that depth and you mixed it with Cade, when Cade really started to figure it out, that's when they become really dangerous. They could beat any team. Now, the biggest key as well to go along with Bryce Williams was vintage Isaac Likely.
Yes.
We had been waiting, and that was coming also from a point production, right? Like, we needed to see him score more, and he did that in this game. Of course, with the rebounds and the assists, and he still did all the little things that we sometimes take for granted with a player like Ice. Mm-hmm. But he stepped up big time in that game, and that also helped them get to that win. Now, at the end, it's uncanny, okay, but it's true, and this happens everywhere you look, especially in college basketball, I feel like is highlighted right now for sure. The star players always seem to show up when it matters, right? Cade, another modest scoring game overall. But at the end, and I know, I completely agree. I said it from the beginning, that the foul that was called where he was shooting a three, the guy barely breathed on him, okay? And the ref was like super trigger happy on the whistle, and he gave him 3 free throws. Mm-hmm. Didn't agree with the call, but it happened. Cade gets up there, and he's stone cold at the free throw line. And that's been one of the things we've harped on, right? Is free throw. And he came up and hit 3 big ones there at the end. And that was one of the biggest plays of the entire game and got him to overtime. And he showed up in that moment. So that's if you take, I know there's people right now, I've seen it all over already. Oh, Cade's he's not scoring like we thought, right? He's not coming out there and pouring in all these points and while I agree, he still needs to be a little bit more selfish. I'm still going to stand by that. There's a fine line from taking too many shots and not taking enough, and he's kind of on the not taking enough train right now. He does a good job facilitating. but he's still made a few mistakes here and there in terms of turning the ball over. That's something that's got to be fixed. The scoring will come. I am fully confident that will come around for Cade. He's too good of a player. But if he is still at this point, which would be super easy to get down on him, if you were him, you'd be like, man, I'm not living up to what I was supposed to this early on, right? There was so much hype on me, and I'm not quite there yet. But yet, at the end of the games, he's there. He shows up and he makes things happen. Fouled out in overtime, and that was huge because you saw his reaction. It wasn't, that's insane, man. That was a bad call. We're done. It was, let's go, head up. Everybody's good to go. And the maturity is something that you can check off the list, and that's huge, right? I mean, I know that you don't see it as much anymore in the NBA, but I promise it's huge when scouts are looking at things like that with young players. So he made it count when he absolutely had to, and that was really, really important. The biggest, if I had to take I know it was a win, it was awesome. And the overtime, I agree when Tom said out there, as soon as it got to overtime, this game was over because Oklahoma State was playing a lot better. And I know, and Max McClung, yeah, he had himself a good game, but he could have, I mean, we've seen him play a lot better than that before. We've seen him play a lot better than that. But you look at it and you go into overtime with Oklahoma State and you say, okay, we're pretty confident. The only disappointment I have is that we might not have should have had it gone to overtime. I say that because you get another, by the way, I think gifted call at the end on the illegal screen with Texas Tech. Not a lot of contact made, didn't look that egregious to me. They get Oklahoma State the ball back with 4 seconds. And you have to remind me because I can't remember if it was Bryce that took it down. I think it was Bryce
Williams.
And you didn't get a shot off. I know it was only 4 seconds, but you have to at least get a shot off. You never know what could happen. You could get fouled the way the refs are blowing the whistle. You might be at the free throw line and can win the game. So that was, but I know I'm nitpicking. Other than that, I thought it was a really solid effort. If Oklahoma State plays like that and Cade scores more, and plays even better, it's a team that can make some noise in the Big 12.
Yeah, you go back to the Texas game. They had that what was it, like 9-minute scoring drought. Texas goes on a 15-0 run or something like that.
17-0.
17.
Yeah,
it was embarrassing.
Brutal.
That shades of last year when Likely goes down and they're going through 9, 10, 11, 12-minute scoring droughts. Not just not scoring from the field like we saw in the Texas Tech game, because there was a period where they didn't score for I think 5 or 6 minutes from the field, but they were still hitting some free throws. Something I think that's important to remember is they've only played 9 games.
Yeah.
In a normal season, you're looking at 12, anywhere between 9 and 13 non-conference games, sometimes even more, before you even get into conference play. And we're about 2 weeks past, a week and a half to 2 weeks past where they would traditionally have started. So I think that's an important thing to note, because it seems like, we talk about the depth and the athleticism and the talent throughout this roster, and Cade, and it seems like he's finally starting to figure it out just a little bit. We're about where this team should be in terms of figuring it out. It's just unfortunate that we're three games in a conference play, fixing to be 4.
And look at the 2 losses, how close they were.
4 points between the 2 games.
Texas and TCU.
Texas, I put this up earlier today. I don't want to close that one out because that's what I've learned today. And God, it's a doozy.
Oh, I cannot wait.
It is a doozy.
Can't wait.
It's embarrassing is what I've got. I'll tell you about it during this break, and you probably want me to say it now. But Texas is the number 9 team in terms of net coming out today. And they go to Austin and barely lose that game. And that's including the 17-0 run in the second half. You eliminate that, you make your free throws, Oklahoma State is setting perfect on the season.
Hey, and a Texas team that hand-waxed Kansas.
Gave them their worst home loss, was it ever? Or since...
It was either ever...
It's like 50 or 60 years, and it's certainly Bill Self's worst loss he's had. I mean, that was bad.
2 different teams, man.
That was like watching Texas and Kansas State play.
Yeah, it was absolutely brutal. So you do take, and that's why I think there's the upside and the ceiling for this team.
Absolutely. They're starting to come into it.
It really is. So I'm like you. I'm not, counting my eggs before they hatch or anything like that, but I am.
Yeah. It's an exciting time for them to be watching basketball.
As I've said this entire season, it's okay to get excited about this team because it's warranted, and there will be games that they, pick up big victories like they did.
And you go back to the TCU game, right? That wasn't a great loss, right? I mean, there's some loss, like you never want to lose a game, but there's some games where you're like, all right, well, we played a top 10 team to the buzzer on the road and we lose by 3. I'm okay with that. That, Mike Boyden doesn't like moral victories. I'm not in for moral victory. That's a moral victory. That's a hell of a game, right? And if you eliminate the 17-0 run against Texas, you eliminate the 9-minute scoring drought or whatever it was there that was just horrible, then OSU probably wins that ball game.
Yeah.
Right? So there were fans, and I get it. The hype of Cade Cunningham, the 3 years leading up to his commitment, and then he commits, and I still felt like, I remember I was laying in bed when it happened. He announces his commitment, or and we were just like laying around, and it was just like, wait a second, did this really happen? So I get it. I get the hype around it, and the season has not, like you lose 2 games. There's certainly one of them you probably shouldn't have lost. But then you go on the road and you upset the number 13 team in the country. That's a hell of a win. Mike Boynton said 5 years ago, that's probably just another game.
Yeah.
Texas Tech is a powerhouse. They're what I would consider a blue-blooded basketball now. And they got a chance to knock off what could be a Final Four, Elite Eight type West Virginia team tonight. This team is coming into it.
Yeah, absolutely. 8 p.m. tip-off tonight on ESPN2. West Virginia is currently a 1.5-point favorite. That's how tight this one is expected in Vegas. We'll get into that matchup next on the Afternoon Sports Drive Show, brought to you by Furniture Showcase.
Yeah, run it back, tell them what I'm coming at. I was on the shit there, now I'm done with that. Scared of what I didn't want, scared of what I wanted, and thought that I was finished, but I hardly had begun. In fact, I'm a beast, I'm a monster, a savage, and any other metaphor the culture can imagine. And I got a caption for anybody asking. That is, I am feeling fantastic. Some days it doesn't take much to bring me down. Some days I'm struggling for control.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster. Show brought to you by Furniture Showcase. Year-end clearance savings continuing through this Sunday, January 10th. You got plenty of time to go take advantage of all the great sales going on at Furniture Showcase, 5th and Main in Stillwater, or by phone, 405-338-7308. All right, we were getting into Oklahoma State, West Virginia tonight. Big game tip-off at 8 o'clock. I know, right? There's probably those people that are like, why so late? 8 o'clock. Hey, I think that's a solid, to me.
Big Monday,
To me, that's big Monday, prime time. Let's get it. And there will be a lot of eyes on this game.
Yes.
And you know what? Good thing, too, because that means it's not on ESPN Plus, right? And everyone doesn't have to go scrounge to try to find the game. It's
I
ridiculous.
Get that the Big 12 and ESPN has spent buku of dollars on trying to get this going, and I agree with you. I think that the future of sport and the future of television is moving to streaming. We see more and more big-time shows released through Amazon, not on TV and then put on Amazon, but through Amazon, through Netflix. Now we're starting to see it through Hulu, HBO Max, all this stuff. I got great internet, right? So that's not an issue, but I just don't like watching sporting events streamed. I don't know if that's I'm still pretty young, but I'm outside the growing up through the streaming age. I'm young enough and I have enough money that I can take advantage of the technology nowadays. But I was like, my generation, I don't even know about you, but my generation was, I feel like, the last generation to want to play outside and not and not play video games, and we were at the forefront of the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 coming out.
Well,
but there's something, I hesitate to say trashy, but there's Oklahoma State, Texas Tech should not be an ESPN Plus game.
I agree.
Oklahoma State, Texas should not be an ESPN Plus game.
Longhorn
and I get
Network.
that they were the number one, the number one prospect for ESPN and Cade Cunningham, and that's one of their premier products now, so they want to showcase that. But put it on the flagship. Put it on ESPN. Hell, I'd watch a game on ESPNU. I feel like there's something trashy about watching a game on ESPN Plus.
The Cardinals, I think it was Cardinals 49ers when they played on Amazon Prime.
I don't like it.
The visual, there was a little, you could tell it was not the same quality.
Figured it out.
But it had 4.8 million viewers which was up from 500,000 on that platform from last year.
There's something about something new and something novel. Like, I feel like it's like when the new iPhone comes out, or like I remember when they first introduced Google Glass. It's still a ridiculous concept, but everyone was like, Google Glass, I gotta have this. No, you don't. That's a crap product.
Yeah.
You don't live in Silicon Valley, and even then they look like huge douchebags. You don't need that.
It's true.
And so I feel like that's the novel of it. Now it's probably going to continue down that trend. I think we're going to see more and more games put on ESPN Plus. I think you're going to see a ton of the Olympic sports this spring on ESPN Plus. Baseball. I think you're going to see a lot of Olympic sports. But you go through the schedule. I think this year is the prime example for Oklahoma State. They got quite a few games. They got a lot of their games on ESPN Plus.
Yeah,
and
big time.
I think you're going to see that more and more and more. I think you're going to see more and more Amazon. I think you're going to try to see Hulu or HBO Max or, I would imagine Netflix is probably going to try to throw their hat in the ring at some point to try to get some sporting events.
The world is run by Amazon and Disney. So
sure.
All right, West Virginia 1.5 point favorite.
Yeah, I like it.
To me, I would put money on Oklahoma State there to cover that one because I will. That means I'm going to have them win. I think they're going to win outright, and I could see it being a close ball game. I think West Virginia is obviously that's the game they don't want to lose. Yeah, but if you look back at that game against Oklahoma, and we know that they make a living in the paint.
Yeah.
West Virginia does. Now, you detailed those players that are out. That's a big issue in terms of that, but they couldn't hit anything inside I think they had, if I remember correctly, 10 made baskets down there. And that's just, that can't get it done. So, Oklahoma State's going to be able to exploit that. They really are. I think this is a big game opportunity for Matthew Alexander-Moncrief. I really, really do. I think he has the opportunity to get up there and get a lot of putbacks, a lot of extra rebounds, and he's going to make a difference in this ball game. And there's people that are going to be like, Patrick, I've heard you this whole time. You quit being a Matthew Alexander-Moncrief stan, man. No. Telling you.
It's appropriate.
Telling you. It's coming.
If you look at the Texas Tech game, now, I would take Derek Culver over just about any other big man in the Big 12. I think Derek Culver is really, really good. But you go back to the Texas Tech game, and MA, and there's other games throughout the year, but you see the glimpses of the athleticism, and you see the glimpses of what his future is going to be. But he still has that young man freshman mindset of, I have the ball, I'm driving the lane, I'm going to go up, I'm going to put this guy on a poster. But the guy's outside the circle, and he is planted, and you are going to get called for a charge 9 times out of 10. Derek Culver is not the kind of guy that you want to do that against. And so if MA can eliminate even 2 of those freshman blunders, you eliminate 2 of those, then I really, really like his chances of being one of the better players in this game.
Yeah. Well, and that's going to force West Virginia, which it did last game against Oklahoma, to move it back beyond the arc, and they shot 58%.
Yeah.
Like, that's tough, even to lose a game when you shoot 58% from 3. So, and we know Oklahoma State's been susceptible to that as well, at covering the 3-point line. So they're going to have to do that a lot in this game. This is a West Virginia team that so far has improved. I mean, if you remember last year in terms of shooting, they were like the worst shooting team in the Big 12. They were not good at getting the ball in the hoop. But Bob Huggins helped turn things around. And that's another thing. You look at coaching in this game, and I think that it brings back a good point that Tom had made up the season, was going into it, the Big 12, there are a number of coaches, and Bob Huggins may be number 1 up there with Bill Self in terms of not going to let Cade Cunningham beat you, right? Because he's going to make that a point of fact. And he's been around, he's seen it all, he's seen the best players, and he's going to make sure that doesn't happen. So for Oklahoma State, look, they're really going to have to make sure that there's, with the lack of big men down there for West Virginia, they need to limit the extra chances. They got to limit the West Virginia offensive rebounds. They got to clear the boards and get set up. When that happens, they're going to be able to run the floor. They're going to be able to set things up. And it's almost like at this point, can't wait to see which player steps up in this game, right? We've already had the Rondell Walker games this season. We saw Bryce last game. We did see a little bit of Farron Flavors early on. Now he's kind of even mixed out of it completely. We've seen Cade already. Ice stepped up big. So you're going to get production. That's no doubt. The biggest question for me is, can Oklahoma State do it back-to-back? and this is a quick turnaround, right? And you want to see that in college basketball. You want to see that to challenge teams like Oklahoma State, because they came off of a, 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks break?
Yeah.
And they knocked off Texas Tech. They had a ton of time to prepare, and clearly they utilized it. I think they did a great job of using that time to work on some things that they needed to improve on. Question is, can they do it back-to-back? If you were to knock off, like you said, Texas Tech and West Virginia, top 25 teams, heads are going to start turning. And it's actually crazy to me. You know, I've watched every single North Carolina game this year, too. I bet every single one, maybe but one. The announcers for ESPN in those games have brought up Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
They'll say, it'll have nothing to do with the game going on in the ACC, but they'll say, you know, my favorite player to watch this year, Cade Cunningham over there at Oklahoma State, and they're all the same way. Just wait, he's going to come on. He's going to come on. He's about to take over. So I'm with everyone in that term of we're getting there, but we're seeing that what he has done, even when he's been limited. There's a lot of players on this team, and we talked about the youth.
Yeah.
How about the maturity they've shown? I know that we came into it early in the season, and it's easy to look at those losses at TCU and immediately go, and I heard, you immediately go, that's a young team. Young team making young mistakes because they don't. But look at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
That was a mature squad out there with not a lot of experience.
Well, I think one of the most important things that we haven't brought it up, when Cade fouls out of the game, I mean, they rose to the occasion.
They acted like nothing happened.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
How easy would it have been to be like, well, that's it?
And there's been times like the end of the first half. You know, Cade picked up, I was either 2 or 3 fouls there in the first. I think he had 2 fouls going into halftime, but he set 2.5, 3 minutes there to end the first half. Wasn't even like it was like he was still on the court. Mm-hmm. This team, as good as Cade is, I will say one of the best attributes of this team is Mike Boynton's ability to convince this team that they are just as good with Cade Cunningham on the bench as they are with him on the court. And there's no doubt that he adds a completely different element all the way around, because it when he's on the floor, it opens up somebody else, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to see him with 2 guys in his region at all times. So and then of course you get his passing abilities. I think he finished with 4 assists, which was a team high. You know, he finished with a solid amount of, I think, 7 rebounds against Tech. I mean, so he brings so much other aspects to the game other than scoring. But this team can figure it out. When there's a lot of teams right now that if they had a Cade Cunningham and Cade is not on the court, they're a complete shell.
Yeah.
You know, you go back to last year, this team had a lot of talent on it last year with you got Thomas Azagua, Lindy Waters, Cam McGriff. They had a lot of talent. When ice went down with mono, it was like they weren't even it was like they were a junior high JV team. You know, it was abysmal. And so Boynton has been able to get these young guys to figure out, hey, when Cade's not on the court, you're still talented basketball players. We brought you here for a reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we brought him here too, and he's good. But when he's not on the court, you're still good. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. We're okay. Yeah. Let's play basketball.
It's a big-time testament to the coaching, no doubt. The entire staff, making them buy into that is crucial. The other thing for Oklahoma State, I think, has to happen tonight. If you watch West Virginia this year, it's not like last year where they got up and they pressed you the second you got the ball inbounds. It's more of a half court. We're going to pick you up half court. And they don't have necessarily the athletes that are going to do that. Defenders for sure. Oklahoma State likes to push the pace.
Yeah.
Push the pace in this game. Now, that doesn't mean you have to, which we did see quite a bit for both teams, Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, especially near the end a bit. They acted like the shot clock was 3 seconds long, right? You got down there and you saw a shot really get up quick.
They were bad shots.
And they weren't bad. They were bad shots, and they weren't moving the ball. But this is an Oklahoma State team that they can attack in transition. I'm telling you, they can get buckets in this game because West Virginia is not very good at defending quickly. And that's another thing that I think has really stepped up. And probably my biggest preview going into the season for Oklahoma State was the fact that I thought they would be moving the ball a lot quicker in the open court, and they have done that. If you watch this Oklahoma State team, sometimes the second that ball's out of the hoop, they're pushing it up the floor and they're trying to get a quick bucket, which if you can get your offense rolling like that, it's a great way to set things up. It really, really is. So I think they do that tonight. And that's the biggest thing. You got to utilize where West Virginia's hurting, because they are hurting right now. They're hurting in that category, and then down low where they haven't had success and now losing a couple of the players, like you said, that's big time. You got to exploit that. So if you want to beat West Virginia, and get everything that comes with it, which is recognition, which is a possible move into the top 25, which I think would be great. That's big time. That's a big way to get started right there.
Yeah, I wish I had this year's media guide. Actually, I can probably find it online. I'd be really curious to see when the last time OSU was actually ranked in the top 25, because I think it's been quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not like a long time.
Yeah.
That's been quite a while.
When we come back on the afternoon sports drive, brought to you by Furniture Showcase, I actually have a question for you, Zach, and I'm going to give that to you, and I'm going to also ask the fans and the listeners as well, especially fans of the Big 12. I'll leave it at that because I've got a question regarding the conference. That's coming up here on the afternoon sports drive.
Whoa. Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt and never told them so. They're watching as I fall somewhere down below. Maybe I'm just falling to get somewhere they want. Get somewhere they want. Get somewhere they want. Get somewhere they want.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster. We're rounding out hour number 1, and I had to pose this question, okay, because I saw it again over the weekend. And the Big 12 did phenomenal in bowl games. They did phenomenal. I mean, it was great to see. And there's always people every single year that, especially the Big 12, and I get some of it because there are plenty of people that talk down on the Big 12 conference as, you know, no defense and all this and blah, 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 and they only have 2 good teams and all that good stuff. And then, of course, you throw in the extra where it's like the SEC runs football, which, by the way, newsflash, it does. But my question is, during the year, we have Big 12 fan bases at each other's throat. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, oh, my gosh, we can't stand this team. If you're not Oklahoma State, you know, we don't like you. Or on the opposite end of the stick, if we're not Oklahoma, we don't like you, or Texas, or whatever. And yet, when it comes to conference play, those same fan bases are all for each other. And it's like Big 12 versus everybody. And we want the Big 12, even if it's, and I've seen it on social media, even if it's Oklahoma or Texas or Iowa State or whatever, we're rooting for you. We want to see you. So why is there this drastic change in the postseason? Is it because if there's no, like, for instance, this year, no Big 12 team in the playoff, that it's like, you know what? All they're playing for is to maybe represent the conference a little bit, so we're going to get behind it. I never once found myself, if I'm rooting for, even back when I rooted for Mizzou when they were in the Big 12, and I grew up rooting for Mizzou, I never once found myself in the postseason or in the bowl game going, I really hope that Texas wins this game.
Yeah.
Or I really hope that even back then that Oklahoma or even Oklahoma State or whatever wins this game. But all of a sudden it changes for people when it comes around. And I'm curious what the reasoning is for some of these people. Would you fall into that category, Zach, or would you just
supporting
be like,
the Big 12?
yeah,
or no?
Supporting the Big 12.
No. I think it depends on. I think it depends on who it is. Like, I'm with you. Like, I've had a lot of experiences with other fan bases. So, like, I went down and covered OSU Super Regional in Lubbock 2 years ago. That was one of the worst displays I have ever seen from a fan base. And I've been to at least 3 Bedlam games in Norman, right? Wearing OSU stuff. And the worst display from fans I've ever seen was in Lubbock a few years ago. When OSU would do something good, their small contingent sitting over by the OSU dugout would stand up and they would chant, OSU Cowboys, you know, or they would chant Orange Power or something cool like that. It got to the point where a majority of people in that ballpark started chanting Boomer Sooner. You know, and they would throw stuff and they would like verbally abuse these OSU. And it wasn't just like, your team stinks, we're better than you. It was like like they were attacking like the people, not the fan base, but the people.
Like, hey, I saw your mom last night.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah, that type of thing.
So I'll never cheer for Texas Tech. I don't care who they're playing. I don't care.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't care if Texas Tech is playing Alabama. Right? And Alabama is like, I don't care if they are going to play a team coached by Art Briles. I would cheer for the Art Briles school. I wanted Florida to beat OU. I wanted Colorado to beat Texas. Like, I understand that it's good for the conference. Oh, the Big 12 goes 5-0. ACC, I think they were 0-6. They lost every single bowl game they were in,
bad.
Which is beautiful. I did want North Carolina to beat A&M. I think that had just been a good story. But you know, I feel that it stems from trying to be better than the SEC or trying to be like the SEC, because the SEC is always chanting
ding,
SEC.
ding, ding.
And so I think that I think they want to try to be like the SEC, and that's not going to happen. I think that the Big 12 needs to be successful in bowl games because it helps the conference. You get a large chunk of money, right? I think that's good for universities. And I've got a lot of people that I grew up with that are OU fans that are like, well, whenever OU's not playing OSU, I cheer for OSU. Well, you're not a fan then.
That's exactly right.
You're not a fan.
Yes.
I'll never cheer for OU, ever.
I think you were spot on with the answer. That's kind of where I was hoping to get out of you, because I think that is where everybody would come from, is that we are going to join in on our love for hating the SEC, or our love from trying to prove everyone that the SEC doesn't run everything, even though, and I look, the SEC, I mean, first of all, they know it, but it doesn't help when they throw out the slogan, right? It just means more. And ESPN is on the teat, right? It's just, so I think it's one of those
embarrassing
things.
when you get SEC teams just blown out of the water, like Florida, like Dan Mullen is coming up with excuses.
What a disaster.
Stuff like,
what a disaster.
Like, in terms of that, like, okay, I'm glad Florida lost.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they got embarrassed, and I'm glad it shut the SEC up a little bit. But I wasn't rooting for OU to beat Florida.
Not at all.
I'm glad Florida lost, but I'm not going to cheer for OU to win. I'm sorry.
Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
I'm with you, man. It's a difficult thing. I'm a lifelong OSU fan. Guarantee I'm older than either one of you. And, I always cheer against OU. Always. Man, we have to recruit against those guys. I will never cheer. Their win-loss record will always be compared to ours.
Yeah.
They are our competition. They are our in-state rival. Yeah, so no, I wanted Florida to beat them. Now, the difficult thing, and the other part of it is, it makes me really happy to look at a television screen and see that the Big 12 is 5-0, and that gives our conference some respect. Because the other difficult thing that happens is I have to sit in my living room and look at my TV screen and see national sports announcers disrespect our conference all the time. Okay? And that hurts.
And that's kind of the double-edged sword of it, because I am glad that the Big 12 went 5-0. I'm glad that it looks good. I'm glad that they had, and I think I was just talking to Robert over the weekend, and I think this year is going to be one of the first years that they do it, that a conference with the best winning percentage in bowl games gets a trophy.
Yeah, I saw that.
So the Big 12 is going to get that trophy. They're the only conference that went undefeated, had the best. So I like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to root for OU. I'm not going to root for Texas in order for the Big 12 to do that.
See, that's the thing. That's not even because, OU is easy to not root for, right? I mean, but I never, especially this weekend, I wasn't actively out there like, man, I really hope Iowa State wins this game.
I like Iowa State.
Well, and I think they're fun to watch.
They're one of the teams I will root for.
But I'll say this. I wasn't sitting there thinking, because they're in the Big 12, I hope Iowa State wins this game. But I completely agree that the main reason is everyone comes together is like, hey, if we can get some more respect on our name than the SEC or whatever, then that means we're going to root for the Big 12. But it's funny to see fan bases flip so much as some of them do in terms of hate your guts during the regular season. But hey, we're all out against the SEC.
And I hear that a lot. And I cover Oklahoma State, so that might be why I hear it more often than other fan bases. But I feel like there's more OU fans that say I root for OSU when they're not playing OU. I don't see how you can. Like if you are a diehard Oklahoma State fan, and I try to put my fandom aside. I try to, and I feel like I do a really good job when I'm writing and reporting on putting my fan base aside. But if you went to the university and you graduated and you went, you bled and you sweat for your team, and that's us. I don't see how you can, in good faith, in good conscience, say, you know what? I think I want OU to beat Florida today. I just don't understand how you can do it.
I was about to get there. State deal. I feel a kinship with Iowa State. I mean, like a brotherhood almost.
They feel like an OSU, don't they?
Yeah. They're over there. They got big bad brother Iowa, the Big Ten team. That they have to live in the shadow of.
Yeah.
They play each other every year. Aiowa usually wins. I don't know, right or wrong. I'm happy. They had. I understand we have to play them every year, and we might be looking at them beating us. But I'm also happy and proud that we're one of the few teams that beat them this year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, and it's a weird dynamic because I'm proud of the Big 12. I'm glad that they went 5-0, and I'm elated that the ACC went 0-6. But I'd have been just as fine if the Big 12 would have went 3-2. I'd have been just as happy. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, but I will not root for OU.
I'm with you.
To win a bowl game or to win any game.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's how I feel about Texas Tech.
I'm not going to tell you my name because I'm about to admit that I was really happy when they lost 2 games in a row earlier this season.
Yeah, we all.
yeah.
I don't even think you have to be an OSU fan to be happy that OU lost 2 in a row.
Not at all.
Hey, we appreciate the phone call.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's funny because it's one of the quirky things that happens in college.
Well, it's
sports.
like, okay, take a look at the NFL, right? If you are an NFC East fan, like my dad is a diehard Dallas fan.
Yeah.
I will never, the only time I'll ever catch my dad cheering for another NFC team, and it's weird, he's not going to root for the Giants or the Eagles or Washington to win. He's just going to root for them not to lose. Like, I hope the other team loses. I'm not going to actively cheer for you to win. I'm not going to support you. I'm just going to hope that other team loses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'll never catch my dad cheering. Like, if you're a Laker fan, you're not going to cheer for the Clippers, right?
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
No. Yeah, and pro sports is even better. I mean, it's just it's funny. It's because if you look back and you think to yourself, where was I during the year when I was rooting for all these Big 12 teams to lose and get out of our way so we could get to the top? But all of a sudden, the postseason,
go Big 12.
we're all joining hands and singing.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it's
here
crazy.
That.
We come back in hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive. We're going to get into a crazy couple of stories out of the NFL last night. Did the Philadelphia Eagles purposely throw in a third-string quarterback to flip off the New York Giants? If only we were sports talk hosts in Philly today. Can you imagine? Or New York.
Oh, my God.
You imagine. Wow, what a day it would be for those people. We'll talk about that and much more in the hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive.
I don't know how we make it out when we make that on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. So icicle, my tears can't drip. Sitting awake alone, tattoos I miss. If I was to call your phone, I know you.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, afternoon sports drive, brought to you by Furniture Showcase here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Call them, text them. How easy is that? You're like, hey, Let me take advantage. Let me find out what's going on at the year-end clearance event. You can text them at 405-338-7308 or online at StillwaterFurnitureShowcase.com. Big-time names and brands right now in that year-end clearance prices as well. Bassett, Lazy Boy, Ashley. You don't have to drive to the big city. You can shop and save right here locally in Stillwater. All right. Got a lot to get to here in the second hour. Week 17, the NFL wrapped up. A lot of really good stuff coming out of this week because you found out exactly, okay, who's going to be in the playoffs, who's out. There were a couple teams that things were really hinging on. Mason Rudolph got a start yesterday for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Didn't do bad.
He played okay. And I say okay because, and if you look at the numbers, you're like, it's good. Now, the interception, yeah, you can't have that at that time. That's not good. But the thing is, for him, from what I saw last year and then yesterday, I'm not sure he's who you want to replace Big Ben because Big Ben's time is coming up. Like before, if you watch him this year, he is dwindling, really. And they started the season, it's hard to believe, right? They were 11-0. It's almost like that. That seems like 100 years ago when they were 11-0, and he was a big part of that. But his arm strength isn't there, and the Steelers are really going to actively have to search for a backup quarterback that's going to take over here soon. I'm not sure Mason Rudolph is a guy. I think he'll get a chance, but I just don't know if he can go 16 weeks and keep the Steelers competitive. I haven't seen enough out of him yet. But yesterday was a lot better than I'll say this that I expected. Also, apparently he and Myles Garrett cleared the air. I mean,
No way.
They say they did, and if I'm Mason Rudolph, like he's a bigger man than me, I'll just say that straight up. If he actually did, and he was like with Myles Garrett, hey man, forgive you.
I would hold a grudge until the day I die.
I'd probably put it on my tombstone. Make sure you tell Myles Garrett, yeah, to
middle
take
finger.
the middle finger.
If someone came to me and told me that holding this grudge will kill you, flatline.
That's exactly right.
Well, this is the way I'm going.
It just drives me insane because after all that happened, it immediately got turned into the race thing.
Yep.
Everyone was like, dude, you come out days later and say
no
this
one
is
knew what he was
happened.
talking about.
No, nobody knew. There was no proof. Mason's like, dude, no, that didn't happen. There's people around here probably that knew Mason, I'm sure, fairly well. And was he that type of guy? Let's be honest.
I think if Mason, and I'll say this with any athlete or anyone, like if Mason were to come, I don't care how close he is with that offensive line or the other athletes on that field. If his own teammates heard him say that,
yeah,
it wouldn't be Myles Garrett
That's
going
what I
after
said.
Mason.
That's what I said. Look, there are black players all over the place on his own team. His head coach. You think that would have been tolerated? No. Don't give me that.
Mason would have been bounced from the league.
Yeah, so to me, that made it worse, right? That Myles Garrett plays that off like that happened. And then, we get into this year. Oh, the Browns are spinning it. By the way, excellent job by the PR team for the Cleveland Browns. We're going to make him the Walter Payton nominee for us and then act like he's completely turned the page. That's one thing. Look, there's a lot of stupid things that have happened in the NFL with players. Mm-hmm. You throw a punch, that's stupid. You kick a dude, that's stupid. You make a really, really dirty hit, that's stupid. But there are things that you look back on and say, well, it was in the heat of the moment, whatever, blah, blah, blah. This was next level what Myles Garrett did. I'll never forget it. And I give credit to Mason Rudolph if he was the guy that was like, hey, man, let's put this behind us, let's move on. Because I definitely would not have done that. That was so over the top of anything I've ever seen in my life. And I'm still thinking, for Myles Garrett's sake, he's
lucky he's not in prison.
To this day, he's got to be counting his lucky stars for literally the side. It's this literal, the side of the helmet that hit him that did.
Well, because it's not. This isn't a. Well, listen, we're gonna fine you. You're gonna get suspended for a year. It's not even the fact. Well, listen, that's too egregious. You're banned from the NFL. That's prison. That's not, hey, I punched a guy. That's like the high school kid that assaulted that ref.
Yeah.
This isn't punching a player and you risk getting suspended from school or you risk not getting to play the rest of the year. This is jail. This is prison. This is permanent record type stuff.
By the way, Buddy apologized for running over the ref.
Don't agree with it. Don't believe it. This is permanent
Yeah.
record stuff that the like your second grade teacher
Yeah.
tries to scare you about.
That's exactly right.
That's the fear he should
Permanent
have.
record. I haven't seen the video, by the way, of the kid apologizing, but I'll have to
It's
watch it.
not like.
Is it heartfelt? Have you seen it?
So you could believe, like, I think you could believe it. Like, you could tell he's like remorseful. But I don't know the kid. All I know is that he assaulted a grown man. And so I tend to, like, I think everybody deserves some form of second chance. I may not forgive you, but I think everyone deserves a second chance depending on what they did. But you could very easily chalk this up to, well, he's, you know, you're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. I'm sorry that I can't play the rest of my life. I'm sorry I can't do this.
Right.
It could be heartfelt, but I don't know.
But that's another reason why the Myles Garrett thing I'll never forgive or forget personally, because he knew exactly what was going on, and maybe I think he claimed that he saw red or whatever. Dude, go get that fixed. Like, go get.
They have pills for that.
Go
now.
get helped, okay? If you're physically, if you're mentally unstable, don't be out there in a high emotional, high impact game.
There's people
like
you can
football.
talk to.
Yeah. So I don't, and he, like, oh, maybe if I do this, it'll get forgotten. Like, dude, we live in 2020. It was 2019. There's a million cameras, and you're going to find every single angle, and that will be forever Myles Garrett. Like, he's a great player, really athletic, and great at what he does, rushing the passer. But that to me is number one thing I'll always think of when I hear his name. All right, hour number 2, we're going to get into this.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You'll pick up the phone and you'll sell, sell, sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Make money, money, make money.
Buy or Sell Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. All right, starting off a new week.
I think it's your turn, because if I think back to the Monday, you went Friday, and then I went Monday, and then we were off for a week. So I think it's back to you.
I think I'm just going to say you're right because I don't even remember that.
I remember
far
weird
back.
stuff like that. I
All
don't
right.
remember test answers, but I remember that.
The important stuff, like whose turn
Absolutely.
is it in Buy or Sell.
Yeah.
All right, so tonight, we talked about Bryce Williams, looked really, really good against Texas Tech, especially that first half, and as you said, late in the game, made some big plays. Buy or Sell that he goes over 10 points tonight against West Virginia.
I'll buy it. I think he does. I think listening to him after the game talk about the confidence of getting the start. They had confidence. They believed that I could do it. So I think he gets another with what he did against Texas Tech. I think he's earned the right to start. So I think you see him out there. I don't know if he gets off to as hot a start as he did. I mean, 9 straight points, and I think he had a 2-ball in there mixed in between. So I'll buy it. I don't know if he gets that 15 mark again. I don't know if he hits that career high. I think 11 to 13.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it because I was going to call it a 13-point game. I think it's somewhere around there, and that includes multiple threes. I mean, that was a really smooth stroke. It looked really, really good against Texas Tech, and he looked confident. That's the best part. He was like putting this ball up and it's going in the hoop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want to see.
Well, and that confidence led to those 2 steals late in the game.
Yeah, big time. He said, I think it was afterwards, right? He's like, you're going to go for it, you're going to gamble, you got to get it.
Yeah.
And that's true. In that situation, it's
What a
like,
quote.
yeah, it was a great quote. You don't want to be the guy that's
You better
taking
do
a
it.
chance and you miss it. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to gamble, you better get it. I love it. And that's the mindset you want. And it's great. I think his previous experience at Ole Miss, he brings it over. He's to me a veteran guy in terms of seeing what you're going to see out of other college basketball players' defenses, how they're going to defend you personally, and he's done a good job of bringing that in. So yeah, I'm going to buy it. I think he grabs, we'll call it 13 points, and it's another solid performance. 13 points, big reason why Oklahoma State's going to win and cover that 1.5-point spread. All right, let's go to the phone line. Caller, you're on the Afternoon Sports Show.
A little rude. It's my turn, but I'll
That's
allow
right.
it.
You're going to break into the Buy or Sell, but go ahead. Caller, you there?
Hello.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
mean
I'm
to
here.
upset you.
All right, what you got for us?
Hey, just quick. If I were to say mention something like the Trae Young effect, would you know what I would mean on basketball?
There's
When
multiple.
Oklahoma
there's maybe multiple things that can account for the Trae Young effect.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's true.
really hot from behind the line, or disrupting a team's chemistry. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Going bald,
I don't
being
mean
afraid of birds.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm watching the Cowboys play, and maybe giving them a little credit, not beating them up because they're not trying to play defense, they're not getting free throws and all the fundamentals. But
I think we lost him. You kind of cut out. Yeah, you kind of cut out. Can you restart the right after fundamentals?
Well, fundamentals, making free throws, playing defense, going the boards, and all that. It seemed like we were just lacking there. But this last game, when our star player, if you want to say, fouled out, it seemed like we played like, okay, now dadgummit, let's play together as a team and get this done, because we lost the main guy here. And there was one other game that seemed like that I just seemed like I was noticing that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I brought that up in the last hour, and I think it was the Texas.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
I think it was the Texas game, maybe.
You're right.
Cade set out for a little bit there in the first half. I've got to give the coaches credit, because this is a really talented team, and it seems like they're just starting to come into their own. But you go back to last year with McGriff and DeZagua and Lindy Waters; those are talented guys. They didn't have that guy, the guy like Cade Cunningham. No. But as soon as Ice, they were one of the best teams in the country, and then Ice goes down with mono, and they immediately went to one of the worst teams. I don't know if there was a team they could have beaten. I know they beat Houston, but that's. The coaches have figured out, listen, you guys are talented. Cade is talented. There's no doubt what he brings to this team. But when he's off the court, we brought you here for a reason. You're still talented basketball players, and you can go out there and win.
It's one thing to tell them that, and then it's another to actually get them to buy in, which to me is the biggest point. You get them to actually do it.
I think like Ice even plays a little bit better when he knows it's just him.
Yeah,
I think he gets back to that more comfortable feel, because he was the guy last year, and now he's had to take a back seat, which we knew was probably going to be the case, and that just happens with a guy like Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, and I'm giving everybody credit on the team. I just mean that they seem like they're just they're taking a little while to get it together. That's what we're going to do in certain situations, how to put a team away and how to play in the last 4 minutes, or all those things. And I think it'll come. They're just young, and I keep hearing that. But again, I told a friend of mine, I said, God, it's almost like the Trae Young effect when he's out. Well, okay, so we got to do it. Or I should say, when he's in, well, we just got to let him do it.
Yeah. Well, and now, before we let you go, it was something that I had talked about in the first part of the show, and now I've lost it. I have no idea what I was going to say. It's gone.
I'm older now. I did a few seconds ago, but you're not.
And it was a good point, too. I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but it was good.
It'll come up at some point. Caller, thanks so much.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. And it was something.
Tonight, when it comes to you, wake somebody. I got it now.
I'll send it out on. Yeah, I'll put it. I'll send that out on Twitter.
There you go. Thank you.
And it was something along the lines of Cade, but that's I think one of the biggest things about this team is there is talent. Oh, I know what it was. I hope you're listening, because we talked about it in the first part of the show.
You came to him.
We're only 9 games in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's still another 2 to 3 non-conference games that should have been played. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, I think you're really going to start to see it click with this team, and it's going to be a good time to do it, because they are getting into the meat of their schedule.
Big time.
They've got a lot of really tough opponents coming up,
which perfectly leads into your buy or sell.
Yeah, it is. So they got West Virginia tonight. West Virginia's a really good team. They got a lot of talent, but they've lost Oscar Shibwe. He's left the team. If y'all haven't heard that, he left the team due to personal reasons. And they lost Isaiah Cottrell a couple days ago to a torn Achilles, which brutal. That sucks. But we go back to past 2 or 3 games, and Oklahoma State's figured out a way to put points on the board down low in the paint. Now, Derek Culver, really talented, really good, probably one of the best big men in the country. Can Oklahoma State find a way to dominate down in the paint without those 2 guys on the court, buy or sell?
Yeah, I think they have to. This is the game, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the big things they have to exploit because West Virginia is going to be lacking a little bit with the Tshiebwe out, which is interesting, by the way, because I think last season, after the year he was going to enter the draft, he was going to test the waters and ended up coming back.
Put up 11.2 points and 9.2 rebounds a game.
He came back to Morgantown. I always wonder how that is. I feel like the team is always pretty acceptive. They get back, guys coming back. That's great. We're going to make sure that you fit back in. But it's always like there's probably a little bit of, dude, you just try to go test the waters.
I don't even know if it has to do with the team so much so the fan base and even to an extent maybe the coaching staff, because when Oklahoma State's a really good example. When Jelani Woods announced that he was going to leave, or when any player announced they're going to transfer, you always, that's my brother, you go get that bag, and it's never the players. So I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's necessarily that, but like, use Mike Gundy for an example. I would have to think that Bob Huggins is probably more extreme than Mike Gundy in this sense. When a player decides that they're going to enter the transfer portal, there is always, like, you are not gone until you sign with another team. You could always withdraw from the transfer portal. If a player entered the transfer portal for Mike Gundy, you're dead to me. I wish you luck, but you're gone. I don't care if you want to come back to Oklahoma State. I don't care if you figured out that you're not good enough to play here. Well, you're not good enough to play anywhere else either, and you found that out. You're not coming back here. You are in the transfer portal. You're gone. Yeah, you've made a commitment to leave. You're going to stick to that commitment.
So yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm going to buy it ultimately. I think that they do. And, you saw a really good example of it against Texas Tech when things weren't given to Cade outside. Another credit to the coaching staff for posting him up, right? Getting him touches inside the paint or around that block area, which he goes to work down there and gets a couple high percentage shots. Next thing you know, he starts getting in a rhythm. So I give credit to the coaching staff for exploiting that. And they're going to have to this game because you're still looking for who's your true big guy. You want Caleb Boone to do the job, and then you want every time I look on that bench and I see Bernard Kuma sitting over there, I'm like, my goodness, man. And he's not in there, so he's not your guy. And Moncrief is going to be, I think he's
learning.
He's learning. He's just so much more talented than your just average throw it in the post.
Yeah, Matthew Alexander Moncrief is not your Shaquille O'Neal. No. He's a Kevin Durant.
Yeah, he's going to be
not
able to,
so much outside, but he's too explosive to put on the block.
He's going to be able to exploit the middle of the floor a lot more and getting into that free throw area, that mid-jump area. So, yeah, I think they do. It's going to be with a multitude of different guys, but they have to if they want to win this game.
Yeah, I'm buying it as well. I know we got a phone call. I'm not going to take that long. I'm going to buy it because I think that, like you said, I think they have to dominate the paint. But I don't think it's going to come from your big men. I think Caleb is going to get his points. I think Matthew Alexander is going to get his points. But I think you're going to see Ice down low more. I think you're going to see Cade down low more. I think you're going to see those fast breaks. I think you're going to see second chance points go back up after a missed shot. So I'm going to buy it. I think they play better in the paint than West Virginia, but it's not going to be in the traditional sense where and it could be. Caleb could wake up. Caleb could go out there and put up 14, 16, 17 points down low.
Be great.
But I think it's going to be from those drives. I think it's going to be from those pick and rolls. I think you're going to see Ice and Cade and Avery and Rondell Walker. I think you're going to see those guys really light it up.
All right, let's hit the phone line. Caller on the Afternoon Sports Drive with Patrick and Zach. What's happening?
Hey, guys. Yes, same topic. Just a quick recap going backwards. It's a really good win against Tech.
Yeah.
To me, I know everybody's been talking about the big, kind of the big play that turned the game in our favor, but the two plays that were real negative plays in the game that could have cost us the game very easily was there was a sequence where Boone got fouled and missed 2 free throws. We were up 4.
Got fouled twice, yeah.
Yeah, and he misses those.
Missed
and
the front end of both.
Goes down and fouls the 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Bad three. That was horrible.
Yeah.
And then in overtime, what was really bad was we had we had a 4-point lead, and we failed a really good free throw shooter on their team. He misses them both, or maybe we were up 6.
Mm-hmm.
He misses them both. They get the rebound and throw it out to the 3-point shooter, and he drains it. But anyway, the game turned out all right, but there were just a couple of times. I really don't feel like Oklahoma State's played a complete game. In some ways, their best game was the Marquette game.
Yeah, and that game hadn't really turned out to be all that fruitful now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they beat Wisconsin. I mean, that's going to help us. If, we do what we need to do, then that game will help us because Wisconsin's going to be a top 15 team all year long. But, no, I mean, they're not great. They were picked 7th in the Big East, so they're not a great team, but still we beat them on their court.
Well, and it was the way they beat them. I mean, because if you look at it from the defensive standpoint, that's Mike Boynton's focus point. He comes in, he's like, "Hey, we're gonna."
Oh, no, yeah, no, it was a great win. Well, I just mean they're 5-4
right?
now.
No, I agree.
Like
I'm just saying that complete, like what the caller said. He's right about there not being a full complete game.
No, it hasn't.
And Marquette was about as close. He's right because if you look at what they do defensively, what they want to do defensively, that was it. That the offense is most likely every single night with the production you're seeing and the potential from every player that's on the floor.
They're so close.
Yeah, you're going to get the offense. That to me, even coming in this year, was never a huge concern of mine. I didn't think they were going to ever be extremely outscored because they couldn't hit shots anywhere on the floor. Nothing like that. It was going to be, and I think they excited a lot of people in that Marquette game. Like, okay, we're going to play defense like that. You mix it in with the offense that is going to be there, and this is going to be a really, really scary team. So, caller, I would agree that if you get back in the Big 12 and you start tightening it up like that, and tonight could be a great opportunity to kick that off against a West Virginia team that's missing some players.
And that's all I meant, because if Marquette, it's they had a couple of huge upsets, but they've lost some games now that they really shouldn't have, and I think they've fallen. They're almost in the 70s in the net rankings, and so if they continue down that trend, but if they play the way they did, like if they could take that style of play and translate it to the Big 12, like tonight, if they play like the way they did against Marquette, they'll beat West Virginia by 20, because Kansas absolutely dismantled West Virginia, and Kansas, they're good. They're a team that could end up being in the Final Four. But Oklahoma State nearly beat Texas, and Texas handed Kansas one of the worst losses in Allen Fieldhouse in program history. So the Big 12 is really weird this year. But if OSU plays like that, they'll beat West Virginia by 15 or 20.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, when I was sitting there watching the Oral Roberts game, the Wichita State game, I'm going, I felt like we were just playing to that level of competition. We should have beat Wichita by 20.
Yeah.
And we ended up having to hold our breath to hold on and win that game. And same with the
Oral
Roberts kid. Oral Roberts had a kid that was hot, and so did the team we played before that was 0-7.
Oakland, yeah.
30. But it was still like, man, we're just not playing up to our ability yet. So you look at the Texas game. We were up 5 at halftime, and I thought we played horrible. We were rushing shots. We should have had a bigger lead. And then we just went into this huge, 8 minutes where we couldn't buy a basket, turning the ball over. I think it's the youth of this team, overall youth of this team. Moncrief plays too fast a lot of the time. He had 4 fouls in 8 minutes of playing against Tech, and didn't take his time in working for a shot and ran over people. So I think it's just youth. The one guy that's really turned it up from freshman to sophomore year is the guard I think he's out of Dallas.
Out of Justin, Avery Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, if he backs these 2 games, if he has a 3rd game in a row like that, we've really got something cooking.
Yeah, Avery is playing the best basketball of his entire life, and it's when they need it too, because you don't get the play he had against Texas or Texas Tech. You get blown out of the water by Texas, and you don't even make to overtime against Texas Tech.
Yep.
But don't see the difference mentally between him and Moncrief? The game slowed down for him.
Yeah.
And he's gotten stronger. He's making his open shots. He's a really good perimeter defender. In fact, those 4 of them between Likely and him and the Ole Miss transfer and the freshman from Putnam City, those 4 guys are so long, so quick, they put so much pressure on the opposing team's guard. I mean, this team has a ton of upside. This team could rattle. I mean, they could go to Lawrence and win in a couple of games because Kansas is a good team, guys, but they're not near what they've been the last. They don't have that big guy in the middle, and they don't have an absolute stud point guard. They're good, and that game they played this weekend isn't going to define them. So I'm just saying this Oklahoma State, because Cade Cunningham, what's he shooting? 39%, but he hasn't hit his stride in Big 12 cards.
Yeah, and I think January is going to be a huge month for this team because that's, like I mentioned with the last caller, this team is yet to hit its stride because they're still a few games away from a normal year in terms of games of finishing non-conference play. So they've got another 2 or 3 games, but I think January is really going to be a big month. They're really going to hit their stride, and I think they'll figure it out. So we appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, thanks, caller.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. No, it's absolutely right. And everybody's got kind of the same read on this team that they are when they do hit that stride. Whew,
they're going to be really
going to be
a lot of fun
to watch. We come back on the afternoon sports drive. We'll finish up buy or sell and get to what we learned later on as well.
I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. It happened, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your time, take me under. I wanna know, but you show me what I'm missing. In the plane down to Southern California, running in the streets all day. I guess some of us just gotta learn the hard way. Don't give a damn what nobody gotta say. We just sell it now. I don't wanna wait for our lives to be over. It happened now, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. So take your time, take me under. I wanna know, could you show me what I'm missing?
Welcome back to the afternoon sports drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Show today brought to you by Furniture Showcase. End of the year closeout pricing. Mattresses of all sizes, big name Serta, Thermopedic. Need a new mattress? That's where you go. Stillwater Furniture Showcase. 405-338-7308. Finishing up buy or sell. So my second one, arguably the story of the day, as we talked about with what it could be like with Philly sports radio and New York sports radio. So last night, the absolute, let me just reiterate this one more time in case anybody forgot. The absolute garbage that the NFC East produced this year. Okay, just hard to watch. That game even last night. And here's the thing, me, I'm the biggest Alex Smith fan ever, and I want him to succeed. And I think that the Washington football team has potential. I mean, Chase Young is a star. He is going to be a stud before it's all said and done. Antonio Gibson's a fun running back. If they find out what's going on at quarterback, that's going to be a fun team. I think they have a chance to, depending on what happens with the Cowboys and their quarterback situation, to be at the top of the NFC East possibly before it's all said and done here. They make a playoff spot last night playing against the Eagles. The New York Giants beat the Dallas Cowboys, took care of their business, and needed the Eagles to win that game to slip into the playoffs at 6-10. 6-10. Absolutely terrible. The fact that any NFC East team is getting to host a playoff game, okay? Washington now gets to host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are by and far the better team and have to come into Washington and play their game, which shouldn't be an issue, but still, it's ridiculous that it happens. With all that being said, Jalen Hurts, we knew, took over, 3 or 4 weeks ago now for Carson Wentz. We talked a lot about that. He's playing last night. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then late in the game, he was pulled for the third-string quarterback on this team, which I didn't even know who it was. I look over on the sideline, right? They show before the game, and Carson Wentz isn't even dressed out. So when I saw that, I'm like, what? Okay, that's a little strange because he was supposed to be your backup. Now they bring in their third string. He comes in. His name is Nick Sudfeld. The only time that he had played football before Nate Sudfeld was in the AAF, which, again, if anybody watched the AAF, that was not good football.
I don't even know what that stands for.
American Legion's football, I think. Yeah. It was not good. It was bad. It wasn't like the XFL. There was actual possible NFL players in the XFL.
Yeah, and that sucked, too.
Yeah. Well, did it? You didn't like it? Like the XFL?
I
like it for the most part.
I like the novelty of the XFL because I grew up with it.
Okay.
I still think it's crap. There's a reason they're not in the NFL.
Well, yeah, it's basically a last chance use situation for him. So Jalen Hurts gets benched for Sudfeld. He comes in and looks lost. I mean, he which no surprise. He was thrust into an NFL game.
Probably had no idea he was even going to play.
Oh, against a Washington team. By the way, their front. You'd like Chase Young to come running after you in your first NFL game?
Imagine that. So I'll go to the grave thinking that backup quarterbacks in the NFL is the greatest job on the planet because
until you have to go in.
And even then, like there's some quarterbacks, they know there's a chance they're probably going to play. Nate Sudfeld, there's zero chance he's going to play. And so he probably went into that game thinking, all right, I'm going to get my game check. I'm going to sit on this heated bench for a little bit. I'm going to get some nachos at halftime. And then all of a sudden, Pederson's like, Sudfeld, you're in. He's like,
I'm curious, though. I'm curious because Doug Pederson, that was his guy. Like, he had been high on him and wanted to see him in action at some point. So I would be not surprised to find out that he was like, hey, Nate, you're going to go in at some point. And I'm trying to remember because I think during the broadcast they might have even said, asking Doug Pederson, they were like, before the game or whatever, hey, would we see the third string quarterback come in if Jalen Hurts wasn't getting it done? And he didn't answer, is what they said. So I bet he did tell him that there was a possibility. But so Jalen Hurts is benched. Immediately, everybody runs to the conclusion, and it got even worse because the Giants players are all over Twitter. Saquon Barkley tweeted about it. You know, Darius Slayton, Eli Manning jumped in on it and was like, what is going on? Why is this happening? This is why we hate Philadelphia. Immediately assuming that Doug Pederson did this so there would be an even worse chance that Philadelphia would win the game and get New York into the playoffs. Terrible game, really. Wasn't a good football game. But buy or sell that there's any truth to that.
Buy. I think there's a level of pettiness in the NFL that extends way past the fan base. Because was there a reason that Jalen Hurts needed to play in that game from the beginning? Like, would losing that game, like, as bad, like, did that affect the outcome of their playoff chances?
No, of the Eagles, they were completely out of it. They had no chance to make the playoffs.
If they win the game, was there any way they could have made the playoffs?
No.
So why? And was Jalen Hurts injured?
No, and he didn't play great by any means. He wasn't necessarily moving the offense that well. You know, they got down towards the goal line a couple times and he ran it in, but that was pretty much it.
But you're telling me that Nate Sudfeld, a guy that I would venture to say 90% of NFL fans have probably never heard of, could do a better job? Was he trying to find the next Nick Foles or something? I mean, there's zero chance there's zero reason that Sudfeld needed to be in that ball game.
It was funny because Chris Collinsworth immediately is like, no, I can see this kind of making sense because with teams that have nothing to play for, it's basically like a tryout. You want to see how players look against live action.
Yeah, but you're gonna wait until the fourth quarter of a game that has no bearing on your season at all, and you're telling, like, if the fan base knows of situations, the coaching staff, or at the very least analysts or strength and conditioning staff, or the general manager, you telling me that Doug Pederson standing on the sideline is like, you know what? If we lose this game, we screw someone who we do not like. There's no reason to pull Jalen Hurts. I'll buy it. Yeah, I think that level of petting. Like, when you're in a situation like that, there's no reason not to be. You might as well.
It's really interesting to think about because I kind of thought about that immediately because everybody's like, you know, especially when the players tweet it. They're like, why is this happening? They hate us. The Eagles don't want us in. You know, they're mad. And everyone's going off, and I'm thinking.
I think it goes the other way too, like with good, because you know you look at Russell Wilson. There was supposed to be, I think, just a run up the gut play at the end of the game, but there was a guy, there was a receiver, and I took a screenshot of it so I could remember it. See, I'm smart. David Moore. David Moore confirmed to reporters that the pop pass to him on the second last play of the game was called so that Moore could get his $100,000 incentive.
Yep.
Wilson knew about it early in the week. It was supposed to be a kneel, and he changed the play at the line of scrimmage. Or like when Tom Brady threw 3 shuffle passes to Antonio Brown in the final 2 minutes to give him 11 catches to get him to 45 so he could get $250,000. You're telling me if a quarterback in a situation like that says, you know what, if I throw you a pass, you're going to get $250,000. You cannot tell me that Doug Pederson is on the sidelines thinking, you know what, if we do this, we can screw someone that we need to screw. So, yeah.
The reason I don't buy it,
I love conspiracy those, so there's that.
well, okay, well, I do too. But I'll say this because I was thinking about something else when I said don't buy it. I'll buy that there was reason behind it to kind of screw New York. The reason I say that is because they saw what happened when they put Jalen Hurts in finally. And it was like that spark. Now, it happened way too late, okay, which is why this really made me question Doug Peterson's decision-making all year because he waited so long to put Carson Wentz on the sideline where he belonged this whole season. And Jalen Hurts is sitting there waiting in the wings like, you never know what could happen. Let's see what could happen. If it doesn't turn out, you got Carson Wentz ready to come back in. Who, by the way, and look, I think the Eagles, their quarterback situation is going to be one of the most interesting storylines this entire offseason. Do you sit there and eat that giant amount of money that you paid Carson Wentz? Is Jalen Hurts your guy? Or is Nate Sudfeld your guy? No. So it's just, I think that there was some intent behind it, obviously. You look at the last play, right? The Eagles needed to get a stop on 4th and short. And before they even get a chance to, they jump off sides. And I'm thinking to myself, now, is that going too far to say? No, it's just. But
I'll buy you a steak dinner if you jump off sides.
What's crazy is, you saw Jason Kelsey afterwards, and he gave a really solid answer and basically called out the coaching staff. And said, you can't put a guy in or whatever that you think's going to win the game, even though we all know it's not going to happen. And our goal is to win, even if we're out of it, blah, blah, blah. It was good stuff.
A real Paul Crewe type of move.
But what made it worse is Doug Peterson's response after the game. When he was asked about it, and he goes, I coached to win, is what he said. I coached to win. That right there is what got me. Because you didn't coach to win.
No.
Jalen Hurts gave you the best chance to win that football game if that's really what you wanted to do. You look back, and here's another telling sign. You look back at the beginning of the game, they held Miles Sanders out, their best running back. They held Dallas Goedert out, their best pass catcher. And they claimed injury. Everyone was like, what? Where'd that pop up? I don't think they were interested at all. This was I think, planned out. I really believe that Doug Pederson had this ready to go in his back pocket and said, if we get in that situation, let's let this happen. And let's make it a super easy excuse of, just like Chris Collinsworth said, well, we want to see what happens when a guy goes out there.
If you want to see what happens when a guy goes out there, you play them the entire game.
Yeah.
You don't pull them at the end of the game when you have no chance of doing anything.
And I will say this real quick. Giants players, I don't feel bad for them. You're 6-10. Don't put your fate in another team's hands, especially a rival.
Division rival.
Especially a rival.
Yeah.
You can't hope that the Eagles, out of all teams, which seem barely competent this year, are going to do the right thing and play their hearts out and guts out and maybe just beat that team and let you get in the playoffs. You just can't accept that or expect it either. So I think that the Giants, they got to quit whining. And that means Eli Manning and all this too. Don't be like, oh man, he did that even if he did. Don't put yourself in that situation. You really think that? How would you feel if your NFL, your favorite team, went in at 6-10 and made the playoffs? Would you actually think that that's a successful season? I wouldn't even want to raise the banner at the stadium that said we're NFC champions, NFC East champions. That'd be the same with the Cowboys. I thought the same thing. If they managed to win, would Jerry Jones really want to lift that banner and remember what happened this season? Absolutely terrible. No. Every single team in the NFC East feels that way too. So the Giants, get over yourself. It's your own problem that you're not in the playoffs. But was there a little funny business maybe going on with Doug Peterson? Yeah.
It's like Baylor. I'll go. I still think Baylor faked a lot of COVID tests. Yeah, we're going to say contact.
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is.
So my final buy or sell, it should be really, really quick because we've discussed it ad nauseum throughout the rest of the day. Oklahoma State, they are on a roll. They're playing some of the best basketball they have all year. They're starting to click. They're starting to figure it out. They're really starting to mature, I think, and to come into their own. They go on the road. They upset number 13 in the country in overtime. They figure out a way to beat a West Virginia team who's down 2 centers and lost over the weekend to OU. They find a way to beat them tonight to go to 2-2 in Big 12 play.
Yeah, I buy it. I think this is a really big opportunity. You know, you win 2 in a row, 2 top 25 opponents, and then it was big the fact that they went to overtime and took the win in overtime.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right, we can go an extra period here, or 5 minutes, I guess, but we can go an extra amount of time. We can lose our top player, and we're going to win a game. It was a big morale booster.
Yeah.
Like, that was big time, you know, things that you read into for that team.
And it's only 2 days later.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a week later.
Right, which I think honestly helps. You know, they're still
Absolutely.
coming off the high. It's let's keep that feeling. Let's not let the time heal anything here. Let's keep it going. So yeah, I'm gonna buy. I think they win. I think they cover that 1.5 point spread. It's gonna be big time.
Yep, I'm gonna buy that as well. And I'm not gonna go into it because I know we get a break. But I discovered this. I don't know how much you cover or not cover, but I don't know how much you follow the English Premier League at all. I don't really. My dad's a huge Chelsea fan. But Liverpool and Man U plays on the 17th of this month, which, from what I'm reading on Twitter, is so far the game of the year in the Premier League. NBC has announced that game will be streamed on Peacock. One of the largest games in one of the largest leagues. Like, America, if you don't like soccer, I think it's easily understandable that the English Premier League is one of the most, no pun intended, premier sports leagues in the entire
and NBC's
world.
always pushing it. Always.
Yeah, huge. And Peacock right now, not great.
Well, they just got The Office
Kinda
put on
sucky.
Peacock.
It's kind of sucky right now. But yeah, they're going to stream the game of the year so far in the Premier League on Peacock. So, man, it's moving quick.
They snatched The Office, and they snatched one of the biggest soccer matches.
I know quite a few people that have canceled their Netflix
Big time, me
subscription.
too. Yep, just for that.
Yeah.
Literally only had Netflix to watch The Office. How about that? I don't blame them. I mean, honestly, I don't know how
a lot
much.
more there than The Office.
There is, I get it, but
I find The Office funny, and I'm not trying to start wars here.
yeah, no.
But isn't every episode of The Office the same?
No.
There's just different comedy.
No, 100%
different words. and
completely
stuff?
different, new each time. That's what makes it so great.
Well, I mean, obviously it's new each time. It's a new episode, but it's like watching Friends.
Friends don't even.
Friends is the same thing
it isn't.
every single episode.
Okay, yeah, but it doesn't go in the same sentence as The Office. Friends is so much worse than The Office.
I think that's generational, to be honest with you. I think it's generational.
All right.
Plus, I will say, though, if Friends came out today, it wouldn't be on network TV. They'd have to put it on cable because there's some stuff in there that's like, I
Office
don't know
too.
how you got away with that.
Big time for The Office. That's why Steve Carell, they wanted to do a reboot, and he was like,
This wouldn't
He was like, there's some humor that would,
Millennials and Gen Z would, well, maybe not millennials because I'm millennial, but like young millennials and then Gen Z would have canceled The Office.
You'd
But
be canceled, triggered.
Office, Friends, hot take of the day, same.
Wow. I wish we had more time so I could just go off on you on that.
You'd be wrong, but it's okay.
When we come back in the afternoon sports drive and tell you what we learned on this Monday. Back after this. Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, rounding out this show here on this Monday with what we learned.
I've got a doozy.
He's got a good one. He's got a really good one. The show brought to you by Furniture Showcase. Make sure you check them out, 5th and Main in Stillwater. Let's get to it.
The day is coming to an end. Time to find out if these two got any smarter.
The question is, what did you learn?
Let's find out what the guys learned today on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Well, I learned something today.
So I'll get mine out of the way because I know yours is good here.
It is good.
But what I learned is that Tua Tagovailoa is in trouble in the NFL. He's in trouble. The Dolphins, they had to win to get in the playoffs. And I think they're one of the teams that I think about when the Giants are complaining. It's like, but look at like a team like the Dolphins. Played really well for the most part of the season. I'd put their defense up against a lot of teams.
Yeah.
The offense, not so much. It just so happened, I think it would have been different. Not saying they would have necessarily won against the Bills yesterday because Josh Allen is next level, and the Bills played really well again. They even benched Josh Allen, right? But if Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't on the COVID list, man, they missed Ryan Fitzpatrick yesterday. And I think Miami's in a nightmare situation with Tua at quarterback, right? They grab him really early, and I thought it was a solid pick. That's who you wanted, that spot. You're looking for a quarterback. But this year when they benched Fitzmagic and they put him in was a really weird time. Like, we had circled that schedule, and we had looked and said, okay, the bye week, that would make sense, right? They would probably look at it, and that's what ultimately happened. But we also maybe didn't expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to be playing as well as he did at that time. So he gets benched, even though he's playing well. He's leading the Dolphins to victories. Tua comes in. I think it was 14 total touchdowns over 9 games, which is okay. But he was benched multiple times for Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he hasn't looked that good. Yesterday wasn't all his fault. Like, his receivers weren't catching the ball. Chan Gailey was calling a terrible game offensively, I thought, too. But you talk about a nightmare situation, because the Dolphins now, they draft their quarterback who they hope's going to get back and lead the franchise and turn the franchise around. They've got the defense they want. They think they've got the coach they want. Brian Flores doing a great job. But now, all of a sudden, they have to pose the question, do we go with Tua next year? Do we draft another passer in this draft again? Which was like, that's the last thing you want to have to do after getting one the year before. So it's like, this is a year, too, if you think about it, why I said the Dolphins had to strike, because the Patriots were terrible. And I know that I'm not expecting them to just turn the page next year and be back to amazing, but Bill Belichick's not going to stay down that long. You got to strike while you can. The Dolphins didn't do that, and Tua was a big part of them not doing that. So I think he's in trouble. If I'm Miami, I'm really considering going elsewhere, because he didn't show enough. Is he completely healthy? Is his throwing motion going to improve? Is his accuracy going to improve? I don't know. He doesn't look comfortable throwing the football that much, and I think they're in a really, really bad situation. So bottom line, it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow, too, in the offseason, but I think he's in trouble. And I would have loved to see what the Dolphins would have done in the playoffs with that defense against one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, I just read that Michael Keaton is going to reprise his role as Batman, apparently.
How about that?
In the same time that Robert Pattinson's going to be playing Batman, so good luck.
You get to play Batman, and you get to play Batman.
Okay, so what I learned today, I'm going to throw this out there, as some of you might be quote-unquote triggered by this, so be prepared.
Trigger warning.
New York Times put out an article. It was by Kurt Streeter, titled "The College Football Champion Not in the Title Game." Some of you guys might be saying, yeah, it probably should have been A&M, or it should have been this team, or should have been that team.
Well, we know it should have been Notre Dame.
Oof. So it starts off, this is how it goes.
Yep.
Who will be college football's next national champion, Alabama or Ohio State? The correct answer should be neither. The team we should be cheering won't be on the field at Hard Rock Stadium near Miami next Monday. The real champion? The University of Connecticut, which was the first football bowl subdivision team to squarely face the coronavirus and decide against playing a single snap during a raging pandemic. Given the pain and tumult of last year, it can be hard to remember that there was a time when the powers that rule major college sports were more concerned about the virus than fattening their bank accounts. I think that Oklahoma State and nearly every single other program. Now there were some holdouts, there were some different teams that you were like, oh, you guys screwed up quite a bit, Baylor, excuse me. But I think there were a lot of programs at a lot of levels and multiple sports that proved that you can play sports safely. And take it from me, a person who literally nearly died from the virus, this is absurd, because Oklahoma State did not lose one starter to COVID this year. And I hesitate to say lose. They didn't have to bench someone due to COVID, right? Now, there were some games that got postponed this year across the country. There's some games that had to get canceled. But by and large, it was fine. Everyone's okay, right? UConn screwed themselves out of a lot of money. And I'm not saying that UConn's great. UConn, they're not going to make, $100 million this year from football. Not going to make $100 million across the board or any sport. But there is no way that UConn is the national champion because they decided to cancel their seasons. You're telling me that UConn is sitting there in the middle of October thinking, you know what? We made the right choice by canceling our season before it even began. They're sitting there thinking, how many people are we going to have to lay off? Mm-hmm. How many families are going to be affected by this because we decided to not have a football season? And we probably should have had a football season.
Yeah, I think being that woke, and that's what it is to me basically like an illness, right?
It's the people that wanted to cancel the football seaon back in April.
Yeah, it's like a really severe one that takes over you and you cannot shake it. You have to try to be that stupid. And I will say this, because I had this plan, and we'll talk more about it this week, but I am very impressed by the NFL, first of all. They went 17 weeks without a canceled game.
Yeah.
And I was nervous because of the leadership in the NFL, right? I'm not a huge Roger Goodell fan, as many people are. There's been a lot of questionable things, and even this year that he's done with teams, it's like, okay, really? But they didn't cancel a game. College football, and it's impressive. College football did basically the same. I know they had some games that were, a ton of games that were moved around, postponed, whatever. But they did a good job for the most part of proving that, like you said, we can play even during the pandemic. Yeah. The guidelines they followed and had to get everybody to follow enough for the most part, that's impressive. Yeah. I mean, that right there is a huge win.
Well, yeah, because you're dealing with, not only are you dealing with 17 through 22, 23-year-old kids, but there is a wide variety of adults that are in an athletic department. Yeah. And I know of quite a few that, even though they've seen firsthand that this virus can be dangerous if you don't take the proper precautions, still, they themselves still don't take proper precautions. So not only were you able to get a bunch of 17 through 24-year-old kids to do things properly, but you were able to round up and hurt a bunch of adults and do it safely.
Guarantee you, this idiot at the New York Times probably doesn't know much about college football, probably doesn't know much about sports, doesn't know what it really actually means to a lot of people. I saw the numbers, I think it was, what was it, a couple days ago. Texas this year still pulled in $150 million from their football program.
Yeah.
With everything going on.
Yeah, it's insane.
We know what kind of money it brings in. We know that it supports small businesses. We know that it supports a lot of people. That's why there were a lot of people, at least some, I guess I should say, that really fought hard and promoted the idea that we can get this done. That's why the Big Ten's decision was so stupid. Right. That's why UConn's decision was that's fair to, I call it stupid because it was. There are people out there that actively rooted for sports not to happen. They wanted to see failure. And they're a bunch of losers. To me, it's the same losers that even to this day constantly move the goalposts on the coronavirus. We can't do this, we can't do this. All of human history has learned to live with things. Like, we've adapted with things. Viruses, plague, whatever. And does it come with tragedy? Yeah, it's a real deal. Like you said, you almost died of it. It's completely legitimate. But these people that root for that and think that the main winner here is the team that didn't play, they didn't watch this season. Because these teams and these players and these coaches, they went through it to get where they were.
Look at how many athletic departments are going to be drastically altered and have already been drastically altered, and not even just for a short period. There's going to be athletic departments that canceled entire programs that will never have that program back. There's schools that canceled baseball, that canceled wrestling, track and field, swimming, diving, gymnastics, all these sports that aren't major revenue streams, but that is one of the only reasons kids go to school. They'll never have that sport ever again. There's going to be people that lost their jobs that are never going to be able to go back and work in that field because their position was canceled.
And I'll say this to kind of end it, one of the things I saw this entire season, there were plenty of, especially sports media members, that I saw from different outlets and different businesses, whatever, actively doing the same thing. We can't play. But yeah, when it did happen, and it's funny because it's ironically that's what they do. They cover college football, right? Yep. We can't do it, even though it's their own job. Now, when it did work out, you also see those same people, rooting for it. Awesome. This is great. Yeah. This should. But didn't you say a few months ago? If you notice,
there's a certain CBS writer.
Yeah.
That no one really likes.
If you notice, there's a trend amongst these people that they like to pretend to be woke about everything, and then they are. And what immediately follows almost every single time Major hypocrisy. Major hypocrisy. They look like idiots, and people call them out. No, we're not afraid to call them out. Call them out.
I'll take that old boy's paycheck.
That's right. You want to go out there and bash what you? I mean, it was unbelievable. Watched a lot of it during this. I mean, and we'll get more into it this week with people that said the NFL wasn't going to happen, Major League Baseball wasn't going to happen. Remember when the Marlins and the Cardinals had their issues? It wasn't going to happen. Look what we've done. It's been a big accomplishment in sports during all this, for sure. It's been the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network, show brought to you by Furniture Showcase. That's Zach Lancaster. I'm Patrick Wheeler. We'll be back here tomorrow and keep it going. We'll have Frank Bonner join us tomorrow. A lot of good stuff coming up, and hopefully talking about an Oklahoma State win. Again, tip-off tonight, 8 o'clock against West Virginia.
I'll be there.
Oh, you will?
First live in-person sporting event since before going into the hospital in November. So
get him on Twitter at ZLancaster91, live tweet. I'm sure you'll be getting updates on the game.
I'll be there.
All right, good stuff. There you go. Oklahoma State, West Virginia tonight. Everybody have a great evening. Back here tomorrow. See you.